Okay, we're going to be doing a PRR restoration, and we're going to be using this burr, which is actually a disposable burr, and it's made by Echo. And if we look at the back side of the burr, it's this number on the burr. It's a very small, fine burr, and now when you're doing a PRR restoration, you're just cutting into the grooves, usually in the central part of the tooth. Now there's a couple ways to do it. This particular burr has a blunt end. You can just drop it in. Now, if I leave the burr down in here, it's going to burn this plastic, so I'm going to do this in almost like I'm painting here. I'm going down initially just about the third of the depth of the burr, and this burr is turning 200,000 RPM, so you probably want to slow it down a little bit so you're not burning your plastic. Because it's turning so fast, I have to let it cool a little bit intermittently. And I'm only going down about 1 millimeter, which is about half the depth of the, little less than half the depth of the diamond coating on this burr. And you try to keep this prep really small. And you can extend it into a groove a little bit. And we're making slow progress here. If you have an electric handpiece, and you can slow it down to about 50,000 RPM, hopefully you won't be burning the plastic so much as this. This is actually an air-driven handpiece, and it's running 200 to 300,000 RPM. And we are, of course, not using any water here in the lab, but on a real patient, you'd be using water, which would substantially cool the burr. So you want a minimalist prep here. And we're only going down about 1 millimeter or so. How does that look? Looks all right. Okay, now let's clean this out. And normally what you would do if you were working on a real patient, you'd have some caries dye here. It's this particular brand by Ultradent is called Sable Seeker, and you would put this dye on here down inside the tooth to try to see if there's any more caries down in there. Now you're probably not going to be doing this in the lab exercise. This is something you would be doing with a real patient, probably, because if you suspect there's more caries, you'll put the dye in there, and then we're going to rinse that off. We've rinsed off the caries detector, and you can see that there is a few dark spots in here. So we're going to assume that that was caries down in here. So we'll clean it out a little bit more. See if we can clean that out. Okay, let's say assume we've got that cleaned out, and okay, we've rinsed it out. Now normally the next step is you're going to take some etchant, and we're not going to use the etchant in the laboratory because it's going to get acid everywhere, but you would put etchant in here for just apply it. You should be able to apply it within 15 seconds or less, and then you would rinse it out with water for about 30 seconds. Rinse it out. Now I don't have water here in the lab, but if we did use the ultra etch or an anti-etchant solution, we would rinse it out for about at least 30 seconds with air water, and then we might try some perma-dry on it to dry it out a little bit more. Now when you use the perma-dry, if you push, there's usually an air bubble. Hit the focus button. I know. There's usually an air bubble in this syringe, and so I find it's somewhat helpful to hold it vertically, bleed the air out, and then I can control very precisely how much of this perma-dry I'm putting onto the tube. So now I'm just putting a little bit in here of the perma-dry. We're going to air dry that off, and now we're ready for the bonding agent. And then focus on that. We're using Scotch Bond universal adhesive here, and to use it we're going to pinch the bubble and get it to go into the smaller of the two blisters there, and then we're going to take the bonding agent and apply it to our teeth. Now it's not going, the brush is actually wider than the preparation, so it's a little bit hard to get it down in here. So I'm going to be kind of generous with it. See if I can get it to go down in there. There it goes. We're going to just quickly air dry this. And I'm going to put a second coat on here, just to be sure. Now when you dry this off, you want to make sure you don't have material in between the teeth. And it's often a good idea to take, if you see that you've gotten a lot of the bonding agent or anything in between here, it's a good idea to take composite in between there. So we've got the bonding in there. We have to light cure this first, of course, for 20 seconds. Light is on. Maybe do that for 20 seconds. And then we're going to put some flowable composite in here. Let's see if we can get some of this to come out. Now I'm sure that I've trapped air bubbles under there. We're going to take an Explorer and make sure that we have this down in here. Photography light in here, it's already set up on us, but normally you're going to be taking your Explorer and making sure it's in there, and it will usually settle down a little bit, and then you're going to take just a little bit more material and add it to it. And you don't want to add so much material that you're changing the occlusion. So let's light cure this now. Okay. And when you put this on, you should be able to glide your Explorer back and forth across here, and there shouldn't be any bumps or catchy spots on the composite. It should just glide smoothly over it, and hopefully you will not have changed your occlusion. However, it's always a good idea to put some articulating paper on here and make sure that you haven't changed your occlusion. All right? I think that should do it.